We are going to be using a few different tech tools, including a Woo Clap. And our Woo Clap is going to invite you to join. So if you've never done a Woo Clap, you can join by creating a new tab on your computer and going to wooclap.com and entering this event code. You can also use your phone to grab the QR code, and then you can join from your phone. Now, I prefer that because then I can use my phone to do the interactions while still watching the screen for the presentation. So you decide how you want to participate in the Woo Clap. We have one person who has already joined. I'm going to join too because I like to join. I'm a joiner, I'll admit it. And we'll get started as people join. When we go to the next slide, you're going to, the how to participate option may go away momentarily, but then you'll get it back. Okay, we've got 5 people in our Woo Clap. Being in the Woo Clap, you can join anonymously to Woo Claps. You can also require that your students log in with a username, so it can be used anonymously or by name, just as a reminder. And if you've never used Woo Clap before, that's the point. Today, we're going to be showing you how to use it a little bit. All right, so I have a question for you. You came to this session. I'm wondering what level of engagement you typically find in your courses. Feel free to go ahead and answer this on your device, on your computer. Make sure you hit the submit key. And I can see at the bottom of my screen how many people have already voted. We're at 5 votes. This is where we find ourselves. It looks like 6 of our folks are saying engage some of the time. Okay, that's pretty typical, right? Like some of us feel like our students are engaged some of the time, but not all the time. We do have one brave person who's acknowledging, yeah, they're just not there. They're just not with me. All right, well, you came to the right place. So, dream question. I want you to envision for a minute, what is a word or a phrase or a series of words that you would want your students to use when talking about your course? What would you want them to say about your course? Again, once you enter your answer, you'll want to make sure you hit submit. And we're going to pull this up as a word cloud. Oh, look at these words. Interesting, refreshing, enlightening, best course ever. I love how the word cloud will continue to change as we enter more answers. So you can encourage folks to answer more than once. You can prompt additional responses, and you can track this in real time. You can also look at these as a list. So it's kind of nice to be able to look at them in a couple different ways. Okay. So this is our goal, right? This is what we want from our students. We want them to think these things. How do we get there? Well, I've got another question for you. What do you want to get out of today's session? Go ahead and take a minute and write in your goal. What outcome do you want to walk away with? And if you've got questions for me or comments, take yourself off mute or throw it in the chat, because I'm definitely interested in comments on any and all of these things. Okay, I'm going to pull up our list. Collegiality, improve my teaching, how to be more engaging. I love this. I want students to know that the classroom is only the beginning and that they need to take the concepts and expand on them in community engagement. You can't do and learn everything in a room. Yeah. Okay. Walk away with one way to change my course to improve student engagement. Awesome. Okay, well, feel free to continue to add responses to that, but here's what we're thinking you're going to get out of today. Our intended outcome is that you are going to identify one strategy or tool to increase student engagement. If you pick out one thing today that you're going to do differently, starting as early as tomorrow, then we'll have accomplished our intended outcome. We're going to talk through 3 different opportunities: Woo Clap, H5P, and discussion forums. And I've got the easy task of going first. And so I'm going to continue for just another few minutes talking about WooClap and also student engagement more generally. And then I'll turn it over to Jamie, who's going to walk us through a couple H5P tools. And then Kevin is going to round us out with getting a little bit more in depth with how we can use discussion forums more effectively. Does anybody have any questions before we move into the session? Okay. Well, real quick, I want to give you this definition. I found one book in particular, and I'm going to try to hold it up, although I got a fake background, so it may not show up. This book, Student Engagement Strategies. It's a great book. It's by Barkley and Major. I've got it in my office, and you're welcome to borrow it anytime. Their definition, after reading a lot of literature from the early 2000s, student engagement is the mental state students are in while learning, representing the intersection between thinking and feeling. So it's that thinking domain and that affective domain, right? And there's a combination of both of those things to create engagement. The idea is that if you improve engagement, you improve motivation, and you improve learning. And there's actually quite a bit of research that they cite at the beginning of their text, and that some of you have probably become familiar with already, that we have improved learning outcomes, improved retention and persistence, and improve outcomes across demographic groups, specifically for at-risk students. The more engaging a course, the more those students who tend to be not college ready or maybe on the edge of college success, they tend to stay through a course and be persistent in a course longer, the more engaging instructors can make their courses. We also find that when we're focused on motivation and motivation theory, that improves those learning outcomes as well. And motivation is a key part of engagement. So there's good reason for us to all be in this session today because it matters. Okay? Engagement really does matter. So I want to know what you're already doing. Got another polling question for you. Choose as many of these as apply. So are you already using anticipatory guides or pretests, WooClap, H5Ps, the videos or other interactives? Are you doing, what kind of discussions are you doing? Go ahead and click any and all that apply and hit submit. And this is what we're already seeing, right? So we've got good use of discussions. Everybody's doing that. We have some medium use of some of these other interactives. Few of you are already using WooClap, so I'm interested to know more about that. And few of you are already using anticipatory guides, which if you haven't figured out is what I've been doing since we started today's session. Okay. One person says other strategies or tools not listed. Who's going to be the brave soul to tell me what that is?
Oh, I popped that in there, Sarah, but you know, lots of stuff.
Yeah, great. Good. So we know we're already doing some of these things, and the goal again today is to learn one more tool, right? One more strategy. All right, so we've been doing WooClap for a few minutes now. This is my last call for why WooClap. WooClap is great for synchronous interactions with your students. It does work asynchronously. I don't think it's as effective as other tools, including one that Jamie's going to show you in a few minutes. So I'll note that first. I like it because it invites individual but anonymous engagement. So if you've got polling questions and you just want to get a general sense, or you're asking sensitive questions that students may not be as comfortable answering in front of peers, it's really good for that. You can use it, like I said, with a username or a code name, so you can track student performance. Okay. If you use it synchronously in class with users logging in, it will inform the grade book. Okay. But most of the time, teachers, I think, are using it for formative assessment. So they're just getting a general sense of how the class is doing as a whole. They're not necessarily, kind of like how we've been using it so far today, not necessarily looking at it afterwards and putting grades in the grade book. But it can be used that way, and it can actually feed to the grade book if you want to synchronize it and integrate it that way. I have found WooClap to be incredibly easy to use, and I've got a few other colleagues who have told me that they find it pretty easy too. And we also do tutorials. We've got some already recorded, and we can meet with you one-on-one. So it's a quick jump in for most folks. The last thing that I'm going to share with you is a video that I made using ScreenPal. on how to add a WooClap to your class. And this is a 1-minute video. I'm going to share it here in the WooClap. So it's another opportunity for you to see how WooClap can work. If you got this logged in on your phone or on your device, you're going to see the transcript for this video as it plays. So to set up a WooClap, are you guys hearing the audio for it or no? Just a little bit. I need to stop share and reshare. I just realized that it didn't share my sound, which is a quick trick. Okay, I'm gonna back it up. Let's try it from there. So to set up a WooClap, we go into My Courses and we click into our course. We scroll all the way to the bottom of the module where we would normally add an activity. Once we get to our Add Activities page, we find the External Tool option. And from the External Tool option, we'll start by giving our activity a name. And then under Pre-configured Tool, we'll scroll down and we will select WooClap. To actually create the WooClap, you'll need to save and return to the course. And then once you're back into the course, you'll click into the activity that you've created, and that will take you directly into the WooClap interface. This is where you'll begin creating your WooClap, but that's a different tutorial. So it's kind of like creating a quiz, okay? And I'll share that link to that YouTube video. I made that on ScreenPal last week as I was playing with that tool. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, who's going to now move us into H5P. And we're going to learn about the interactive video tool and the course presentation tool. Jamie, you're still muted.
3 years of doing this. I never can remember that. All right, everyone seeing my screen there? Okay. So I like the comment in the WooClap earlier. I've just kind of reflect back to that the classroom is only the starting space. So I want to take that approach here very much. Hoping this is a springboard to get you thinking about how you use your content and how you can present it. Because I read a line, H5P doesn't display the content. H5P is the content. It puts you very close to the information. And there's a lot of ways, whether you're sequencing your content, whether you want to present rich media, if you wanted to check knowledge or have type of a documentation, there's just it's staggering, actually, to the possibilities and the potential it has. But as with any project or as with any idea, you need a tool to get started. And we have what we call an authoring tool. And you can do this a couple of ways. What we like to do, Kevin, Sarah, and I, and some others, we like to use a desktop app versus the version that you can use in My Courses. So the desktop app is called Lumi. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here. I have it open already. And I'll kind of show you. There's a video that that will talk through how to go about getting it. So here's kind of the interface. You can see that there's a file list here on the left, and that has you have a chance to if you select new, you've got around 60 different content types that you can choose from. There's like I say, there's a lot of options here. It's best just to start simple with this if you're creating your first one. Some of the bigger content types like the course presentation or the interactive book, they include a lot of different ways to present content. So I'd say just kind of determine what your level of comfort is. Now with Lumi, let me go into, here's the demo course. So we can see that I've selected the course presentation here. And what I like about the desktop app is that there are two tabs up here at the top. Now there's an edit and a view tab. Now the viewing helps you it will just kind of run all the code that you put in there. And from this, you can actually interact with the content a lot, just like the student would. So what I've got here is, I'm calling it a template, but I'm hoping that with an authoring tool like Lumi, it is really similar to PowerPoint in a lot of ways. But every element that you see on the screen can be interacted with, including the background. And you have this WYSIWYG editor up top. Now this allows you all the content and all the activity that you want to add. It's just a drag and drop kind of a concept, and there's of course a lot more that you can choose from. And I'll take you through some. I don't have all these represented, but I think the top picks, I would say, are in this presentation. Any questions so far? Okay, good. There is a web app. So I'm going to take you to this website to kind of show you where to go. So this is app.lumi.education. And here you'll see, and I've got a video for this. I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into the view tab, and we'll get the presentation going here. All right. So as you can see, there's a navigation bar at the bottom, which students can click through. And then there's also on-screen navigation. Now, these are buttons that I created so when I press start, you see what happened. I immediately went to the fourth slide. So what that accounts for is these first three slides are for this menu up top. So if I were to go to the next slide and I would hit the home button, it takes me back home. So it's a type of navigation that you can really personalize and make your own. So between these slides, I have the table of contents, and these are all linked to the appropriate slide that gets you started. So as I was saying, Lumi is a creation tool and an editor, also known as an authoring tool, a lot like PowerPoint. Whereas Microsoft Word will create doc files, Lumi will create H5P files that you can then manipulate. You can export as HTML documents or SCORM. I'm not going to get too technical into this demo, but just so you know, you have a lot of flexibility with this desktop app. But let me move to the next slide where we'll have a video. I'll go ahead and play it. Hopefully you can hear it.
To get started creating H5P content, you first need an authoring tool. We recommend a tool called Lumi. This is a very lightweight software that allows you to create H5Ps offline, away from the LMS, and then you can manipulate the files as you see fit. To get there, go to app.lumi.education, and we're going to select Lumi Desktop, and then we'll select our operating system. If you're using Windows, just select Installer for single user. If you're using Mac OS, just select your processor. And if you're a Linux user, I'm going to assume that you know what you're doing, so I won't even go over these options. Okay, once you have it downloaded and installed, we'll just open it up here. And we will go to our editor and create new H5P.
Okay, so with that video, I've kind of repeated myself a little bit. I apologize for that, but the point was that this video is in there, and right next to it, we have our first interaction. So this is what you would call an open text, an exportable text area. So the student can just type as they want. So it's something like that. They can just they have a space to type and give a reflection, and then they can just go to the next slide. So if you have, like I say, I have two different types of navigation. There's a forward and a back navigation here, or you can use the bar at the bottom. There's a way to disable this. So here's, as we go through the slides, you'll see that some of the information is just kind of boilerplate right now, but you can put your own content in there as well. And this would just be kind of a typical slide. So the next slide, this is actually the interaction that they'll see. So if we have this is what you call a fill in the blank. And so I'll just, so we can say that and check. and it gives you an immediate score. And you can see that the circle will be filled in once they've completed that activity. Here's an example of a drag and drop. Now, this particular background image, I found a cool idea. If you're familiar with PowerPoint, you know that there's this feature called Smart Art, which allows you to a really creative way to present your information, whether it's a process or a cycle or a listing or whatever, bullets. But it basically allows you some of these visual things, which are really good for drag and drops. I found out. So if you create a slide with Smart Art, you can use that as a background for the drag and drop. And again, I'm happy to get into this a little more. I'm just going to show you where I didn't make this from scratch, that there are tools that you can use. So at this point, I mean, this scales really well on mobile. And if a student is trying to interact with it, they can just drag the information right in there and they've got credit for it. All right, so this is what you call a single choice interaction, which it's presented in a series. So if you have the wrong correct, so we can answer this correctly, and then there's a good little refreshing sound. We can hit the forward button to go to the next question, and say we select the wrong answer here. So 1 + 1 is 3. We have a rather disappointing sound, and then we see that our score is 50%. So we actually can retry this whole thing and go through. And you have the option to disable the show solution or the retry buttons through the settings. And so now we've selected the right answers. We've gotten full credit for the assignment, and now we can move on. Now, so 2 more content types. We have drag the words. So we have actions speak louder than words. And we check that. So this is all very responsive. It works fine on mobile devices and phones and tablets. I don't know. That was really about that question. I just kind of put that up there just as an example. So so here's our third slide. So if you wanted to start on if you wanted to go over some terms or something, these are called dialogue cards. Now this is what you call a repetition mode. So we have basically it's a flashcard, except there's no you don't actually enter anything into this. So when you say, what does H5P stand for? Any guesses? Yeah, so H5P stands for HTML5 package. So meaning that the two computer languages that it uses are HTML5 and JavaScript, and that's where it gets all the math for reporting grades and the HTML, which allows it to work with web browsers. And so this being repetitive mode, you can actually put this into rounds to where you can continue to reinforce the content. So if you say, I got this wrong, and so it'll take you to the next question. True or false, H5P and my courses work together to report grades to the gradebook and provide activity tracking. Again, you could have just put that in a true or false question, but this is a way to just another way to ask and check their knowledge. So true, however, success with grade reporting largely depends on the type of content. Now I've got a link later on that kind of takes you to an article about what content types, how they report to the gradebook and which ones do not report at all, because it's important to choose the right activity. And then finally, these are just some test questions. What is the name of the desktop authoring tool? We know that's Lumi, so we can turn and just have that. So we got that right. So the next screen, we'll see, okay, well, let's proceed to round 2, and we're just going to do them over again if we need to, or we can start over. So if you have another set of questions, you would put them here and so forth. All right. So study practice. And then finally, I want to get a little bit into tracking analytics. I'd like to work with you on this if you want to integrate something, if you want to build something, because I want to make sure that when your students do these activities, that they're able to, that you're able to see that they've completed it and that they've got a grade for it. So between the basic completion tracking, we are able to access reports to show them what did they open the assignment, did they reach the end of it, what's the grade, and that's where the score and results tracking come in. So this like the course presentation and the interactive video that I will get to just after this, we'll be able to see what their grades are. And this article takes you to the h5p.org knowledge base, which has quite a bit of good information about how to use different content types. But just to that end, there's the two options when if you have an H5P in your LMS, or excuse me, in your course. These two things are what you're going to want to pay attention to. There's the attempt options, so that's located in the settings of the H5P. So we want to enable the attempt tracking here, and then completion tracking depends a lot again on the content. So if you wanted to show activity as complete, then the student must receive a grade or they must view it. So little things like that will save you some hassle, just in terms of how the student how you see the activity that they've had. And then finally, here's the summary slide. This we go one more. So we see that here are all the questions that were asked. So we've got 10 out of 10 here. So down here, this export text. This is a neat feature because earlier in the presentation we had the video, which they would type into. So if we go to the summary slide, they're able to actually export this text as a Microsoft Word document. So it will, if they have a reflection or something you need them to turn in, they can easily download this and submit that as an assignment. So and there's so many things that you can do with this presentation. I mean, I've kind of included a lot of it looks kind of busy a little on the screen, but just so that you know what the options are. There is an option to actually hide this entire navigation bottom at the bottom, at the bar at the bottom, to where you can just interact with these with the left and right, forward and back, and these buttons at the top. Any questions so far? Have I missed anything? Okay. So I want to show you this one I did for the ACA class. If it will open. So we have.
Hey, Jamie, in the interest of time, do you think we could move to the interactive video? I want to make sure Kevin has the opportunity to talk through his stuff.
Okay. I want to show off all my toys.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm having fun. Okay, so we'll go back to the interactive video. So this is a slightly smaller, more accessible content type, which is really more obvious about what it does. It's a video that you can put into. You can take a video from YouTube and you can import that into this. For this, I used one of Kevin's videos because I agree with him on all things. And so I used one of his. He's got a great video. What he does is he has a kind of a homegrown approach where the instructor can provide a video and a PowerPoint. So we can see that. Let me back up just a little bit. So one of the things about the video, one of the most popular things that we try to tell people is that when you import a YouTube video, you have control over. There's this option called a behavioral settings, and down here we're going to see we have this option, but we have this prevent skipping forward in a video. Now that will turn off the scrubber, and so that the student can't just blow through the video. They have to watch the whole thing. However, this is one of those things. As you're testing, as you're creating these things, leave that unchecked until the very end, because as you go to test your video, if it's a long video, you don't want to have to wait until that. You want to be able to scrub while you're editing, in other words. So if we go to the view tab, you can see this is the emergency medical responder course, and now we can scrub just as much as we want. So I'll just have a very first. You're starting out with a question, and the video pauses, and anytime there's a circle in the navigation bar down here, that means that there's going to be something they interact with. So we say that's going to be true, and of course that circle turns.
Welcome to chat.
So I'm going to scrub forward to the very end, and we'll have a question pop up here.
Children. or you should start CPR in a child if the child is still warm when you arrive.
So yeah, there we go. So which is the following is not a comment. So the video will pause and you can select. I think that's it. Okay, got that one right. And then it gives you your
Answer
points.
is
So right after
C, pneumonia.
this happens, they'll have a screen that comes up, and this is what I will actually report to the grade book. So they'll click submit answers, and we've gotten 1 out of 1 points, and we can close this, and we're done with the video. So these two things between the interactive video and the course presentation, there's a lot of options, and I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but again, just show you what's out there. And if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to answer that. All right. Yes, back to you, Sarah. You muted, Sarah.
Thank you, Jamie. If you would like to learn more about H5P, I've prompted you to answer that question in the WooClap. If you don't submit an answer, that's okay. But if you want to talk with Jamie more, he'll get your name in a list and he'll reach out to you directly. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move right into Kevin's presentation. He's going to be talking about discussion forums, and he is also going to be sharing his screen. Kevin's going to talk about types of discussion forums. He's going to look at grading differences in the different types, and he's also going to hopefully touch on student views. Tall order. Take it away, Kev.
You bet. I've got my Zoom screen, I think, just hid behind you. I did. Nope. My Zoom screen hid. This is always my fear, was using Zoom, because I never do. Where my whole screen disappeared.
Usually my navigation menu disappears, but then if I
know. I think. Go ahead,
hover-
Sarah.
if I hover over the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen, it'll usually reappear. So try moving your mouse around.
Yeah, I am. I just hate it when this happens. Huh. Yeah, all the main Zoom controls disappeared. They might be behind the PowerPoint on the other screen. Let me see if that's the case. There they are. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, that said, let me share a screen here. I'll share this one. And I've also shared a link that will take you to the LMS resource guide, but I put in 4 discussions of the 4 or 5 discussion types. And when you log in, because you're a student in the LMS resource guide, you'll see what the students see. So if there's some question about, hey, how does this look for them, that will show you that as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through basically a graffiti theme, because I know some of the discussions basically have more in common with graffiti than not, because it's something somebody has basically come in and tagged your wall, and that's how it's working there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come through and we're just going to go through rapidly the logic behind discussions, and then what the new LMS offers by way of grading. Now, this is going to be a survey, so I'm going to go through this fairly rapidly, and by that I mean pretty fast. So I just want to put this on your radar, and then you can reach out to us or to me. Or I've also just finished redoing an LMS resource guide, 4 tutorials on the new forum section there that precedes the link that I just gave you in terms of sections on the guide. So just be conscious of that. But my goal here is just to sort of find out what you need. And since Sarah has pointed out that we're recording this and people often will see these recordings later, if I'm being a little, if I'm speaking to broader audiences for that purpose, just be conscious of that. Of course, you see the little activity deal here. So if you're putting in discussion forums and all of you are using them, then you basically understand the basics to that. But real fast, I can pull up a WooClap, Miss Sarah, with my welcome, my graffiti welcome here. First of all, if you don't mind telling me, how many of you are teaching just fully online this semester? And how many of you are teaching fully face-to-face this semester versus, of course, who's teaching both? And I'm going to have those records there. And Sarah, if you don't mind just sort of sharing, Sarah, what you're seeing on your side, because I'm going to not be able to pull that up right now.
Sure. right now it looks like we've got 4 people who are teaching a mix, 1 person who is teaching only online.
Okay, great. That's very helpful.
Yep.
Okay, as we get into that, what I want to do is talk about the use case. And when I'm talking about use case, I'm talking about if you are teaching a small face-to-face class, but you see value in this tool, or if you're teaching a fully online and you're using this as an enforced class interaction, where students are required to interact with one another and perhaps with you within the forms construct, that really is different than if you're just using it sort of as a backup to let some of your students interact, or maybe you're using it even for groups. So that we're keeping that in mind as use case, but we also have to consider class size. And by class size, I'm going to call this a discussion continuum to be fancy, but it is basically everything from a teeny class with 3 people to 3 classes of 30. I think that's pretty much our continuum here. But if you have a small class, of course you're going to use it differently. And it's important that we think about that as we come up with these. Maybe you have, 6, 7 people in there, and you're trying to get some give and take, and they can really get to know one another. That's a lot different. That is thoughtful give and take, that observably valid, easy to track over participation and non-participation. Grading is organic, analog, community building, maybe no grading at all because you're using it and you know who's doing what because it's a small group. Of course, if you've got a medium-sized class and you're using it for like periodic queries to allow classmates to share perspectives with one another or draw real, possibly esoteric academic conclusions, and they're able to share what they think about something, that is a different model, and it's going to require different grading and a different type of forum versus the large class. And in the large class, these are required classes maybe with limited or no face-to-face interaction to offset the possible isolation in an effort to introduce community. Plus, you've got in the right-hand corner there, it was somebody really good with the spray can, regular substantive interaction. So you've got that, and you're thinking, I've got to prove that I'm interacting with them, they're interacting with each other. It's substantive. So with that model, and I know I'm racing through these, but I'm just trying to posit that when we talk about discussions, you're all skilled instructors. You know that you've got to keep your use case and your class in size. So what I'm going to run through rapidly today is how this dictates your forum type. What do you want to use? Knowing those things. What prompt do you need to use for those? Because that varies, a small class, large class, face-to-face or not. The prompt itself will be different. And then what interaction are you hoping for the students to have? We'll touch on that briefly. And then how are you going to interact within that? These all vary considering those areas. And then, of course, all of these will dictate the grading choices you need. So like I said, a real quick speed through of those concepts. We'll just hit it right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the forum types there are, okay? And the forum types, you see there's 5, standard, regular, standard forum in a blog, single, simple, each person posts one discussion, all that. But actually there's 2 kinds within that. What we have is we have forums where students post topics, they hit discuss topic, or students post replies to what you wrote. Let's talk about that for a second. For students post topics, there's a lot of reasons to do this, and we'll touch on those in a second. But the 2 kinds of standard forums and each person posts one discussion means that students are posting a topic, which what that means is you have this idea, you give them, everyone post the paper topic you're going to be writing this semester, okay? So each person has to write that. So they all write that, and of course, then they respond to each other. And so that's really healthy as they're talking about this person is going to have this topic, but then they're also responding to everybody else. So this little class of 6 people has a whole lot going on. And you'll look in the upper left-hand corner, that add discussion topic means the student is starting up a thread essentially. Now, as I just indicated, it makes sense. If maybe you're doing recipes and everyone has to post a recipe and comment on each other's recipes, that works. But consider instead, maybe you lean towards students reply to your topic. So the single simple discussion and the Q&A forum, you're basically posting the topic and then they're responding to your topic. Now, they're still going to talk to one another as well. So it can get a little busy, but once again, what is your class size? And then what's your class modality? That will dictate if this is manageable. And it's not covered in this, but consider if you've got a large class, breaking your discussions up into like 4 groups where they can talk to one another, but it isn't overwhelming to go through. All right, so you've got to know what you're hoping for. And this might be one of the woo clap things, Sarah. I apologize, I didn't bring you up to do the other ones. But what are you hoping for when you have a discussion? Basically, there's quite a bit of options here for what you might expect. So really, are you looking at crowdsourcing some answers? Are you looking at colleague recognition so they meet one another in that regard as colleagues? Lively exchange of ideas? Maybe you want some real lively banter, academic banter, or you're providing a personal space for them to interact with each other, to share opinions, to build community, because compare facts. So you got this as educators. It's important that you think, okay, well, I'm not just putting this out for discussion. I'm putting this out with some kind of a goal in mind. Did you bring up the goals slide, Sarah?
I sure did. You're welcome to vote. This one's a little different. It's going to ask you to rank the 5. So if you want to try ranking these 5 purposes that you see on your question, and we'll see how the rankings go. The options are introducing students to each other, crowdsourcing, facilitating lively exchange of ideas, building community, and demonstrating regular substantive interaction, RSI. So
thank you so much. And so
yep.
Go ahead and keep doing that. And I'll just walk through these other ideas I'm just trying to introduce today. And now the next thing is, it's not a given what your role is in the discussion. Understand you don't have to always be just the teacher. Okay, so you're the instructor, or maybe you're a learner. And by that, maybe you have some rhetorical ignorance. You're going to posit a question and you're going to throw out different ideas where you maybe know where you're leading them, but rhetorical ignorance is valid where you pretend you do not know or you model that. When I taught full time, I would, at the first day of every year, I would say, I use rhetorical ignorance. I will act like I don't know. That's not unethical. Anyways, so are you the moderator, a mentor, a matchmaker? By that, I mean, you're trying to get students to get to know each other. And you can see some of these other options here. So that screams us through to basically, with that in mind, you're going to want to make some grading choices as to, and I'm going to give you 4 of these, and then I've got some more slides for answers at the end, but I just want to throw this out there for consideration. Maybe your grading is about, you're trying to grade on community building. Maybe you're trying to just count how much they're doing because that's important. Maybe you're just trying to be efficient because you do have 3 classes of 30. Or maybe you have time to really look at the quality. So let's just touch on those briefly. All right, for the concept of community, if indeed I use community, now you're going to see I've got whole form grading chosen, and look at that where it says grade, it says none. I'm building community here and I'm enforcing it because maybe I have this small class. And I say, please share a paragraph about what makes you want to become a teacher. You can see how that would really, in a small class, would be a sensible thing that maybe you don't want to put any grade on there at all, which is fine. Okay, but maybe you have to grade quantity. You are just trying to make sure people are doing their thing. So what I've got here for grading is a checklist. Now for checklist, it's just like, did they do it? Yes or no? Did they do it? Did they do it? So 3 of these are checked, 1 isn't. They got points for 2 of them. They didn't get points for the last. There's, however, a comment box in there that I can use so I could write stuff. Okay, what about quality? For quality, what if I really had this terrific rubric I've made? Look at this rubric. I mean, you can't read it from where you're sitting, but I've got a Q&A forum. So they're all offering these things. I'm going to go through, I'm going to use this rubric and give them a lot of feedback because my feedback is about the quality of what they wrote. Or lastly, what if I really just have to be efficient because I can barely keep up with what I'm doing? I'm trying to keep up with this. I'm going through. Well, if you make it a marking guide, you can give points there, And then you can have this drop down with little comments that's built in. So that's really fast. It's there again. We can't always be precious about everything we do when it comes to how we instruct. So that said, what I want you to take away from this is like, we have a tool that can be varied quite a bit depending on what your use case is and what your class size is, what your course load is. And I just wanted to sort of run through those rapidly, because as we're trying to help you, but we're not saying, oh, here's the tool. We're looking for what's your need, or even what was said earlier, you know, that, well, I won't pursue that with the time we have. Sarah, I'm at 46, which means I'm 16 minutes in. Do I have a couple more minutes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do is, there's just a few of us here. I can walk through, just give you a little quick glance of each of the basically 4 kinds of form types, and then the 4 kinds of grading types, just as a breakout. But what I would like is, if you are feeling a little run over right now and you have a question specifically, tell me. But if you have full-size screen, what should happen right now is you should be seeing what the student sees in a standard forum. Now, there's 2 kinds of standard forums. The layout's a little different, but they're the same thing. The instructor you see on this side, you know, they'll put that up, and in the standard forum, you'll see all the different subjects that are on the left-hand side there. And then on the right-hand side, when you go through to grade that, it's pretty straightforward. You'll just go in there, you'll click individuals to be able to grade. On the right-hand side, what you'll see, and you'll have to get close to your screen, I recognize, what the student will see on their side. Now, this matters because if the prompt you write says, or your grade, maybe you say, I want one, you start one discussion and you reply twice, but you've chosen one that isn't a standard forum, then basically they're not going to be able to do that. Another kind of forum, and just yell at me if you've got a question. I'm just throwing these up, and I'm gonna the tutorials that I have just recently made will cover this in some detail. Now, this is each person posts one forum. Now, this means each person is going to have to add a discussion topic, but they'll only get it one time. So they can each add a discussion topic, and they can say that. Now, in this, I have recipes. So you'll see on your side, when you go to grade these, you'll see every single student's title on the left-hand side. And then if you click that, you'll see everything they did. And you'll be able to go in there and you'll be able to grade users with that button that says grade users. The 2 on the right, that's what the student will see. Now, I have a handout with all of these on it as well in the tutorials that are on the LMS resource guide. But this is each person posts one forum. The Q&A forum is interesting because if I'm asking them to say, all share what their topic is for their paper for this, their final paper this year, I don't want them to see each other's titles until they have committed themselves to one. However, in the Q&A forum, and you guys may know this if you've done it before. Now, April, you may still be snagged by this. It's coming for you. But in a QA forum, after you make it, you have to then put the first prompt in your, the first response yourself. So you make it, you click it, then you write something. If you don't, it won't work, and then the student won't see anything at all when they get there that they can reply to. So just know this Q&A form is an odd thing, but it prevents them from seeing one another's post until they themselves have committed to the topic, if that makes sense. So I have a bit of a breakout here showing how that works, but I'm not going to pursue it further. And then a single simple forum. All you're doing here is they're responding to you, and it's easy as pie, but they're not all writing their own topic. So that makes sense. Now, the grading methods that we've been talking about, to sort of recap, there's only 4. There's simple direct, which means you're adding a number, and you can't tell unless you get real close to your screen. But I've gone on there and I've given Devin a 6, and what Devin sees on his side is he sees it's a 6. That's it. Okay. Now, if you use a marking guide, this is the one that has that drop down I referenced. So on the left-hand side, you'll hit grade users, and then you'll see there's this breakout there that not only can you add comments and a point, but you can also use their little drop down if you want to add, if you see value in that. What does the student see? The student sees the same thing. They see the points, they see the little comment you had as a dropdown or what you wrote, and their score. And it's going to be the aggregate of whatever you call. So if you say you post something, it's worth 10, you respond, it's worth 5, or respond, it's worth 5. So that's the scale you'd be using there. But if you use a checklist is faster, but it doesn't give you that spectrum. This checklist on the left-hand side, you'll see it says there's 3 submissions. There's their submission and the 2 replies. I made it 10, 5, and 5. And on the checklist, you just check them. Yes, you did, or yes, you didn't do it. So there isn't, it's just a binary. And then lastly, rubrics can be really thorough. Trouble is, on the way the breakout is on your side, if you've got a long rubric, it's gonna be squeezed into a column. So just be conscious of that. Now, I think rubrics are best if they are matching your, what your outcomes are, and you're commenting on those with the language you've developed over years. Now, that was everything, and that puts me at 51. So I think that's just at 20. I know that was a lot, but the goal was you now have a sense of the 4 kinds of forums and the 4 kinds of grading, and then considering what's best for your use case and for your class size. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Kevin. I've gone ahead and posted up another question. If you would like to be contacted for a discussion forum follow-up consultation with Kevin, add your name and submit that, and we'll get that in a list. We had a lot to share today. And the goal, remember, was for you to walk away with one strategy. So we're going to use these last few minutes to ask for you all to either share in the chat or out loud something that you are interested in pursuing. And I'm gonna ask Josh to start us off. Go ahead, Josh.
I want to use the H5P to help with outlining and organizing of speeches, and have students identify different parts of a speech, an oral presentation that they're watching.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That'll be a really cool way. You got a few different options. I know Jamie will be able to talk with you more about exactly which tool is going to work best. That's great. Who's next? Go ahead, April.
I too want to use the H5P, particularly with videos. I like the text box where students can reflect right away and just capture what they're thinking there. And I'm not sure about the drag and drop, but I'm thinking about that. And then I also appreciated the marking guide was new for me in the discussion forum. So I appreciated that, but definitely that H5P.
Great. What are you thinking, Rose? I know she's multitasking.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead. Thanks, Dan.
Definitely the H5P. Need to move on that. I think that would be very helpful for my entirely online class. And also thanks, Kevin. I have a course that I inherited that had a Q&A format, and I realized that yes, I have to start the discussion, and it's a one topic discussion, even if they change topics. The whole thing's a little messy. So
yeah. And when you import them, your initial prompt disappears. So after you import them, you still have to go and add the first comment.
Exactly. And I've been doing that. If I forget, I hear about it for sure. So
which is good, right? That's a different kind of engagement. Students feel like they need to reach out. That's good. Rose has commented in the chat that she's thinking about using H5P with text instead of video. And I know Kevin and Jamie have worked a lot creating text-based interactives in H5P. So that's totally possible. And I definitely encourage you to reach out to Kevin or Jamie for that. Like, yeah, replacing a lesson or a book. Yeah, it's great. Using the course presentation, you could do those interactives while kind of like a lesson used to function. Elijah, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking about the H5P, especially after you and I had a discussion this morning about maybe using it for my videos and having that interaction of I pose a question and they can answer it to see how they're doing as far as the video goes.
Yeah, and it's a great tool. Like Jamie said, if it can feed the grade book and they can get a grade on it, or it could just be a way for you to know how the students are overall feeling about the content. Some teachers are using it as confirmation, like I watched this video, Other instructors are using it as a graded item. So you've got some choices to make there too, Elijah. And that, I mean, that goes with all the H5Ps. Jamie, go ahead.
And Elijah, let's talk, because there's actually a content type called a chart, which allows you to visualize data in a lot of different ways. And all you need to do is plug your numbers in. So it's kind of a one-off thing. So if you had a very specific data set that you wanted to illustrate, I haven't used it before. So if you want to be a guinea pig, I'd love to try that one out.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So I want to keep us open to discussion, but I did want to note that I know it seemed like we were doing a lot of tech heavy stuff in this session, and you know, that makes sense. I think a lot of us, if we're teaching blended courses, we know how to engage our students when they're in the classroom. It is good to remember that some of these tools can be great supplemental resources. So even if we're teaching a blended class or a hybrid class and we have a lot of interaction, our students can really benefit from some of these interactives when they're not with us. So keep that in mind as well, that these aren't just good for fully online classes. They're also great for those blended and hybrid courses where students need time to practice. And then it may be a case of how you locate it in the course or how many points you award for them engaging with those activities. Other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead, April.
I just wanted to say I appreciated the WooClap experience too, Sarah. I have not heard of WooClap. I am trying to think about, I'm not sure how to use that with fully online. That's not synchronous. So
you know,
I did appreciate learning about it.
Yeah, and I'll say, like I mentioned, it does work as an asynchronous. There's a setting within WooClap that you can allow students to go into it through the LMS and do it asynchronously on their own. They would still have to answer the questions, do the polls. They wouldn't get the benefit of seeing the real-time responses, right? But you would collect assessment information that way. So if you wanted to use it as a presentation tool, you could. One of our instructors over in public safety is starting her class activity with the WooClap during class time, and then they're finishing it outside of class. So she's launching them in class synchronously, and then she's turning it asynchronous for them to finish up. And there's a lot of interactives within WooClap that we didn't look at all today. Kind of like H5Ps, it's got drag and drops, locate on an image. There's places for them to interact. So it's a good tool. It's not as seamless with asynchronous as H5P. Other comments or questions? Well, Kevin and Jamie and I want to thank you all so much for being part of our session today. We hope that you are walking away with at least one strategy, and it sounds like some of you are going to be following up. So I know to leave Kevin and Jamie alone so that they can help all of you with your projects that are now starting, right? Hope you have a great rest of your day and a good week, and we'll be in touch. Thanks so much.